It's time to review Chapter 256 of Jujutsu Kaisen, and there is really no other way to put it. This chapter is just phenomenal. Yuji Itadori is my favorite character in Jujutsu Kaisen, and this is one of my favorite chapters in the entire series. This chapter has a tremendous amount to talk about, and we're going to start with the Gojo flashback. And really, Gojo is just going over the explanation of a black flash that is a physical hit within a microsecond of a curse energy hit. And this causes the distortion in space that we know as a black flash, but even Gojo thinks that this explanation is a little bit lackluster. Gojo says there is more to a black flash than simply a microsecond hit, and I think he is on the money. The takeaway here, and what I think we are setting up for, is someone being able to master the black flash, and it's probably Yuji given the end of this chapter. And the narrator also tells us that Yuji currently holds the record for number of recorded black flashes. But after this little flashback, we cut back to the present where everybody is worried that Sukuna has landed his second black flash. Yuji, Choso, and Maki are all a little confused about who Miguel is because apparently Yuta didn't actually give them any serious information. Maki does mention Yuta saying something about potential backup, but why he wouldn't just tell everybody about Miguel up front, I have no idea. But either way, they are more than willing to let Miguel fight alongside them because when you are fighting Sukuna, you need all the help you can get. They immediately go back into combat, not having any time to worry about whether or not Sukuna has regained his RCT. Yuji decides to pull out his signature move of utilizing the local architecture to pin Sukuna against a wall. Meanwhile, they have Choso drop in to get a headshot with the piercing mid while Sukuna manages to dip out. And Maki does actually dive in here and pin Sukuna against a wall with her Soul Liberation Blade after Choso got him out of position. Sukuna is able to break out of her hold, but they continue their fight in melee using the air as a foothold, which is pretty crazy. We've seen Sukuna do this versus Yorozu, but Maki, I don't remember her ever doing this except for maybe in chapter 215. But unfortunately for Maki, Sukuna lands his third black flash and he just rockets her through a window and immediately follows it up with a dismantle, and Maki is realizing his output is increasing and this shit is starting to hurt. Maki is looking pretty worried, and rightfully so, and this is all in line with what Yuta said previously that a full output dismantle would just one-shot them. Choso does manage to be a chief here and pulls the attention of Sukuna away from Maki, but all it really accomplishes is Sukuna slipping behind him and turning Choso into another black flash victim. But I will say in Choso's defense, he does use blood armor to mitigate the damage of the black flash, which is a pretty crazy feat to be honest. Personally, I am not a big fan of blood manipulation. It is just not my thing, and it probably never will be, but this is a pretty good showing for it. Considering Choso got previously turned into a double donut by a basic hand jab from Sukuna, this is a pretty major upgrade. But the whole thing Choso is trying to accomplish here is holding Sukuna in place so Yuji can punch him or black flash, because right now, since Yuji's punches are weakening Sukuna's output and hold over his body, he is the most important member of their team. Without him able to cancel out the output increase from the black flashes, they're pretty much dead. And as of right now, Sukuna is on a 4 black flash streak because every single punch he has actually landed since he punched Maki has been yet another black flash. Unless you think he actually landed a punch against Miguel here, but personally I don't think so. Either way, Sukuna is on a roll and he is unlikely to stop at 4 black flashes. It's probably going to go even further. The story does cut over to Miguel after this, and Miguel is pretty much ready to just up and leave, and who can really blame him? He hardly wanted to fight Sukuna in the first place, and now Sukuna has hit 4 black flashes. Yeah, fuck that. But Larue says no. He says they have to stay because there is more he can do. And perhaps last week I judged the hand CT too hastily. Perhaps I judged the man too hastily because Larue stands on principle. Yuji and Sukuna are throwing hands as the narration says that Yuji is building up to a black flash and Sukuna can sense it. And like Mahito and Shibuya, Sukuna is trying to avoid getting hit by a black flash at all costs. Sukuna prepares to avoid Yuji's black flash, but before he is able to, his attention is diverted by no other than the people's champion Larue, who is able to force Sukuna to look in his direction, because his CT allows him to grab hold of the heart of people as well, not just their bodies. And if this works on Sukuna, it works on pretty much anybody as far as I'm concerned. I definitely judged Larue way too fast. He really pulled through where it counted. I'm actually shocked, but I'm happy for them. I'm happy we got a character that actually isn't just a ghetto's groupie. But Yuji takes the opportunity opportunity and black flashes Sukuna and craters him into a wall, and the sparks are massive, and among them it says Yuji Itadori awakens, with his eyes looking eerily similar to Sukuna's. So what is going on here? What happened to Yuji? What did he unlock? My first inclination would be he has mastered the black flash, or he is going to be using more black flashes, and we're probably going to see a black flash clash at some point. If Yuji masters the black flash and Sukuna sees him master this, then he too will be able to do black flash on command, because that's how Sukuna works as far as we know. But on the flip side, if Yuji is able to dampen the output of Sukuna by hitting him, then a black flash clash is a real possibility, because a barrage of these things should cancel each other out. I would be so down to see this, because the obvious parallel to the wonderful fight known as Grasshopper versus Yuji is truly untapped. And speaking of parallels, there are a ton between Yuji and Sukuna right now, and there are some pretty big callbacks to Mahito versus Yuji, things like Larue at the last minute diverting his attention so he can land a black flash reminds me of Toto. And the whole I'm you situation from Mahito versus Yuji, I feel like that was a frontrunner for what we're going to get with Sukuna, because Yuji and Sukuna, they're probably the same person or related or something. And I'll just give my full dream for next chapter. I want to see a non-stop barrage of black flashes. I want the black flash record to just be shattered. I don't want some single digit counting of the black flashes like I'm watching Sesame Street. I want a light show. I want the characters on the sideline to lose track. And are we really in the final awakening of Yuji Itadori? I'm not so sure. It feels like there are some plot lines we need to wrap up before we can have a real 1v1. Gege Akatame has slowly but surely been setting up the foundations of a Yuji power-up, and I feel like this is part of that and not the finale. When we look back at chapter 214, Sukuna was shocked in his own internal dialogue at the power of Yuji, before he reminds himself, that's right, the boy is from back then, Kenjaku sure is twisted. And even though Sukuna does acknowledge Yuji as an opponent, and he does acknowledge that Yuji is someone he can't break, Sukuna has blinders on for him. He continues to ignore the obvious warning signs that something is just not quite right about Yuji. Yuji is hardly a natural sorcerer. He is the son of Kenjaku, and Kenjaku went out of his way to make this kid strong enough to contain Ryomen Sukuna. And we'll probably know by the beginning of next chapter if more of Sukuna's power is going to manifest inside of Yuji, but I think that's where this is headed. Though I don't think we're going to have as grand of a reveal as some people might be expecting right now, it will still be pretty huge. And on a side note, I think Miguel is just going to dip here like he said he would. Larue pretty much had to beg him to stay. And while Larue does stand on business, he also literally can't stand on his own right now, so they're probably going to get him out of there. And speaking of side characters, where the fuck is Hikari? He was supposed to fight Sukuna. He was in the chapter 220 image of all the people that were supposed to fight Sukuna, and he has just not shown up. He has been fighting Urame for so long, and you know they must be sick of that song by now, because he is on like his 14th jackpot. And we are also on a 1-week break right now, and that kind of sucks because I am way more excited about next chapter than I was about any of the past 5 chapters. People were getting some serious Sukuna fatigue for a bit there, and I can't really blame them, okay? And I see people saying that everyone switched up. Well, yeah, of course they switched up. The chapter was fucking good. I think it's a little reductive to tell somebody who didn't like the past 10 chapters that their criticism was all pointless because they liked this one. Though I do think they did a great job by switching up the quote-unquote Sukuna cycle that everyone's been talking about by having Yuji actually pop off. It feels like forever since I got to talk about a new power-up for Yuji besides blood manipulation, so I am excited to see where this goes. And I am especially excited to see where his relationship with Sukuna goes and how Megumi is going to factor into it. Because pretty much wherever Sukuna and Yuji are, you can bet your ass that Megumi is going to be there too, because these 3 characters are pretty much inseparable. But those are my opinions on this chapter. This chapter is a 10 for me. You may not agree, but that's where I'm going to put it. But I'm curious to see what you guys think the new power-up of Yuji is, and if he's related to Sukuna, so let me know in the comments below. And if you like content like this, subscribe for more. And as always, thanks for watching.